Canada, a country of immigrants. At many points in time, a long time ago, or more recently, families have come here from around the world, and they've contributed a wide range of knowledge, skills, and experience, dreams, and potential. Many of them are establishing unique ways of becoming successful. Alexander Obnovluni was, at one time, a Soviet naval officer and submarine navigator. He came to Canada almost 20 years ago and has built a new business to navigate. He is now a farmer, writer, philosopher, and beekeeper, and he has found the perfect recruits to accompany him on his journey, honeybees. I came to Canada on January 1st, 1991, and I had a plan. I knew exactly what I wanted to do. Beekeeping. I didn't have any money, but I had a strong wish and knowledge. Here, we made a smoker for our work. Alexander is a very well-known person in the Russian community, not just because of his honey, but because of his writings and active social position. His regular articles in Russian newspapers and Canadian magazines about man and nature, and his first book about beekeeping in Canada have attracted a lot of attention. His website includes new essays from his next book, which will tell the story of his family in the USSR. In his store, you can often see people who came not only to buy honey, but to discuss important news happening in Russia and, of course, Canada. This is one of my bee yards. I have 7 of them, 15 million bees. They are perfect workers without any unions and parties. So this is one bee yard. Others are nearby, 20 to 30 kilometers from each other, and I visit them daily. Today I will show you how I take honey from the hives. At the beginning, I started as a helper to another Russian immigrant who came here after World War II. He had many bees, but he died soon after I started. His wife asked me to look after the bees, so I worked for 1 year and she paid me by honey, 100 kilograms. At that time, honey was $4 for a kilogram, and it was enough for me to buy my first bees. In several years, step by step, I bought all of her bees. Alexander was born in the Ukraine, but when he was 4, his family was sent to Siberia. His father, a soldier during the World War II, was placed in a Nazi military camp, and after that, he got into one of Stalin's Soviet prisons, and all family members were designated as enemies of the state. From 1946 to 1953 in Siberia, they ate frozen potatoes from the fields, herbs and wild berries to survive. But Alexander grew up as a strong man. Like many kids who grew up during wartime, he dreamt of becoming a Soviet naval officer, because for them, it was a symbol of strength and freedom. In 1960, his dream came true. He was accepted by the Pacific Military Fleet Academy in Vladivostok to enroll in the Navigators program. I graduated from the academy in 1966. That's already during the last century. I served as a navigator on submarines of the Soviet Pacific Fleet. But later, in the 70s, I got the feeling that something's wrong. I saw that there was a big lie behind every small thing. I was trying to tell my honest opinion and got into conflict with the system, so I left the Navy. But I didn't find my way to nature yet. I moved to Leningrad and became a student at the Electro-Technical Institute. There I met my future wife Rita. She was a student there too. After my second graduation, I worked as an engineer at the Baltic Shipbuilding Company. My project there was one of Soviet warships that carried helicopters. In the 70s and 80s, we were all pretty poor. Financial dependence always limits your spiritual freedom. As an engineer with 2 diplomas, I was getting 130 rubles. My wife was getting the same, and we already had 2 daughters to raise. My intuition was telling me that the land could give me that freedom I was looking for. So in 1981, I moved to a small town in the Volgograd region. We did not have enough money to buy bees. So I took my wedding ring, my wife took her wedding ring, golden earpieces and a chain. We brought them to the pawn shop and we got about 400 rubles. That's how I bought my first bees. At the end of the first year of selling honey, we made more money than I was getting as an engineer for several years. It looked like his life was now leading in the right direction, but at the beginning of the 90s, the Soviet agricultural system was going through crisis and literally falling apart. At the same time, the first independent entrepreneurs in Russia were being suppressed by government and opposed by average rural workers. Another major change was required, and Alexander found it through immigration to Canada, but with a clear plan: to be a beekeeper. Thanks to Canada, a beautiful country. We are happy here. Although there are many problems in the farming system, some people say, why would you talk about problems? Canada invited you. Yes, that's right. But if we compare the situation now with 1991, and at that time, Canada was a paradise. Today, farmers in Canada are in big trouble. In 91, I registered my business in Ontario and I got the number 6,247. That means there were at least 6,247 beekeepers in our province. Today, there are about 1,500. They are killing their own beekeepers by importing cheap honey from other countries. Another very dangerous thing for the bees and for us. We are totally conquered by genetically modified food. I remember in 91, it just started to appear on small tables for a much cheaper price. Of course, people wanted to save money, and slowly but surely, genetically modified food took off all over the place, and farmers who grew natural products lost their market and went out of business. This is the flower pollen the bees have gathered for one day. The pollen is very good for our health. It gives you lots of energy, proteins, and of course vitamins. And you don't need to work hard to get it. Bees bring it as a free gift. They store it in special pockets under their wings, but when they come home they are not able to get in with full pockets. So they just drop some pollen and it is gathered in a special net under the hive. Every evening I pick it up, and it must be kept in a fridge. If you see it kept on a store shelf for a long time, it means this pollen is dried and it is not useful for our health anymore. Pollen should be taken fresh only. Natural honey is a unique product. It can be stored for thousands of years and will keep its qualities and taste. Since the ancient times, honey and pollen gathered by bees have been used by humans for food. Propolis, royal jelly, wax, and even bees' poison have been used in medicine. From historians we know that the body of Alexander the Great, who died in Babylon, was preserved in bee honey for a long period of time. Since the time of Egyptian pharaohs, the image of the bee has been used as a symbol of connection with the highest blessings of God and the sacred knowledge of the secrets of creation. In the Bible, honey is mentioned 61 times. Ancients knew more about the medicinal use of honey than we do now, although today bee products are used to cure many diseases. Honey possesses a unique ability to restore the normal work of all systems and organs of the human body. Here, I open the hive, and the energy of life is flowing to me. I feel it. I breathe it. Look, all the frames are full. The bees even stored honey on top of the frame. This is a generous gift to man from nature. You don't need to plow and to sow here. Just put up the hive, and the bees will bring you gold. This is a purest natural product, all for free. You're able to take it and not harm nature. Bees are very wise creatures. They can live without a man. This wooden hive with frames was created by humans for collecting honey. In nature, bees would live in a hollow of a tree. There they store honey to feed and raise bees. As scientists have discovered, bees lived on the earth millions of years before humans, and they were fine. Without bees, we wouldn't have such a variety of flora and fauna on our planet. But today, we have a new situation. Bees are dying and disappearing without any trace.
Canada had very high losses. They had about, on average, the same losses we did. And we're seeing this story played out everywhere. We're seeing it in Europe, we're seeing it in Brazil, we're seeing it in Ecuador, we're getting reports out of Asia. So clearly something is fundamentally wrong with bee health. And call it what you want, we have to address this need. We need bees to produce food.
Such a big and unexpected loss triggered lots of attention from scientists and researchers in many countries. But the most alarming impact has been felt in the USA.
In 2006, we had a very large Pennsylvania beekeeper, one of our largest beekeepers, and he had 3,000 colonies, which he described as boiling over with bees. And as he does every year, he moved those bees from Pennsylvania to Florida. And when he returned to those bees, about a month and a half later, he found 2,000 of 3,000 colonies were dead. And that was a very high loss, and that happened really quickly. And when I was doing dissections, I was looking for a specific organism, and we didn't find it at numbers, but we found all sorts of scar tissue and other damage in these bees. And so it was like an autopsy of these bees. As we did these autopsies, it was like CSI, that we found all sorts of different things. And it was clear to us, or it seemed very clear to us, that the immune system of the bees had somehow become dysfunctional, that something was wrong with their immune system, and this made them susceptible to this whole host of other fungus and bacteria and bee diseases that normally a healthy colony would be able to prevent.
Alexander feels that one of the reasons for this decline is related to a lost balance between man and nature. All living beings on our planet are related, but some of human activities could destroy these relationships and lead to disappearance of some forms of life. And that, in turn, could have an effect on the entire biological cycle of the planet. Bees are dying because of man's action. First example, feeding bees with sugar syrup. Some businessmen produce so-called honey this way. It is fake, but cheap and quick. Bees are getting sick from it. Men are giving them antibiotics and more antibiotics until finally their immune system fails and they are dying. Another reason, genetically modified plants. They are not giving seeds. They are not reproducing themselves. Every year, farmers must buy new seeds to plant. Yes, it was made to control farmers, but let's see how it affects the bees. GM plants do not have nectar, which is food for bees, so they have lost their source for living. Now, GMP have pollen which is spreading to wild plants and poisoning them. They are mutating too. This is the way the GMP affects some insects and animals, so they could lose their reproduction ability. All living creatures on Earth may be endangered. Research on the long-term effects of genetically modified products on human health is still inconclusive, and the impact that it's having on bees is still being studied. One of the questions is whether modified products which are targeted towards specific species have a spillover effect, which is adding to the range of stresses on a wide range of insects, including honeybees.
The particularly risky genetically modified crop is BT corn, or where they've added a gene which allows the plant to produce this protein called BT. This product is very, very selective for the organism it's targeted for. So for instance, BT usually works against caterpillars, things that will become butterflies or moths. And how it works is it breaks down the lining of the insect's stomach, and that means that the normal healthy bacteria that are in the stomach of that bacteria seep out into the insect's blood or hemolymph and gives them blood poisoning, and it kills them. Because if it is killing bees, it's killing bees in a way that is not been described before. You know, it's a new way, and so it doesn't seem like a very likely system. And it's not only bees that are in trouble. If we look at native bee populations, we think that 3 species of bumblebees have gone extinct in the last couple of years. And so there's this pattern. So we wanted to look at pathogens. We also wanted to look at these pesticides that either farmers are applying and the bees are bringing back, or that beekeepers are applying to control varroa mites. And third, we wanted to look at something we called environmental stress.
We are now beginning to understand some of the ways our civilization, including industrialized agriculture, is affecting the planet on a global scale. In some instances, we are approaching critical points where major changes can be expected. We could feel it in our economics, climate, and the entire planet's water cycle. Alexander believes that bees are one of those signs, or maybe the last message from Earth to humans, that the changes are at the door.
Пчелы очень хорошо чувствуют.
Bees have a perfect sense of premonition. They always feel changes in weather coming. If you learn their behavior, you can predict the weather for tomorrow and the following days. They also could predict natural disasters like earthquakes, floods, and others. So if they feel that something is going to threaten their existence, they could fly away. A famous Bulgarian psychic, Vanga, once said, "The first species to disappear from the earth before major changes are bees." And that is what we are beginning to see now.
Сегодня и подошли к тому моменту, когда пчелы начинают исчезать.
What we see in Canada is a high level of civilization, but at the same time, it is our way to self-destruction. Artificial foods and an artificial way of life, apart from the land and from nature. When people live in concrete blocks, they block themselves from the information from cosmos, God. So they have no more real connection. But when you live with nature, that connection is open to you. Some people say, our planet is overpopulated. There is not enough food for everybody. That's not true. Look how much food only bees can give you. Honey, pollen, and wax. And it's all free. As I have written in my book, humanity could live without any limitations and there would be enough food for all. But only if you live in connection with nature. If you go in another direction, then there will be problems. In order to survive in Russia, our family moved to the land and we were able to get everything we needed. Fruits, vegetables, honey, and money. Here in Canada, we chose the same direction, bees and land. Now I can support my family with everything.
овощами.
If I don't have something, we can always trade with my neighbors. Some of them have chickens, cows, sheep, and so on. So I see the land as a base for surviving in any case. The land will never let you down. It will always give you everything you need.
Земля даст все, что тебе нужно.
Just recently, Alexander built a big new house that he dreamed to have for his grandchildren. Now he's creating a plan for a mixed garden with all the fruits and vegetables needed for their life. And that's what he calls a privilege of a creator. It was our happy decision to come to Canada, because here we were able to fulfill all our dreams. In Russia, there is an idiom. Every man in his lifetime must plant a tree, build a house, and raise a child. We did it. We planted trees, and not just one, 100. We've got 2 daughters and 2 grandchildren as well, and we have built a house exactly as we dreamed of. And all this time we were working with what we love. My husband loves to work with bees, and I was always helping him in any way I could. If Sasha begins to do something, he does it with all his strength and passion. Working with bees for him is a real pleasure, although they sting sometimes, but that is also good for his health.